The first time I did it, like 10 years ago, the sort of press, particularly the industry press in America, was like, why is he saying these awful things to the most beautiful people? You know? And then by the 5th time, right, they were going, good, give it to him, we're sick of celebrities.
There's a claim circulating right now that the Epstein files reveal Ellen DeGeneres as, and I'm quoting this directly from the Post's, Hollywood's most prolific cannibal, that she consumed human flesh.
Guess what? Pizza's here. Hello. Come on down. I lied. We weren't going backstage.
Ellen DeGeneres is named in the Epstein documents, and that part is real. Her name appears in the broader index of over 300 high-profile individuals that show up across the investigative materials.
Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end, he obviously didn't himself. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up. I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
That phrase was spoken on live television in a room full of the most influential individuals in Hollywood, and not a single person laughed, glowing, shining a light on something they don't want shined on. He spent years repeating it. Hollywood labeled him insane. They blacklisted him twice. They informed every studio in town, if you touch this item, you are finished.
Handing that person, here you go, you can do whatever you want. No, it doesn't work that in the industry. We've come to
a dark, deeply unsettling place. That was the man who once portrayed Jesus Christ on screen, telling the world what was really happening behind Hollywood's curtain. And while the media mocked him for saying it out loud, Ricky Gervais was standing on the Golden Globe stage firing warning shots at the most powerful people in entertainment. At the exact same time, one of daytime television's biggest stars was quietly building an empire around the words, "Be kind." Then everything changed. The Department of Justice released over 3 million pages tied to Jeffrey Epstein. Hidden inside those records were names nobody expected to see. One of them belonged to Ellen DeGeneres. And suddenly, every warning Ricky Gervais had ever made started hitting differently. But almost nobody connected the dots. Before we get to Ellen, before we get to the documents, before we get to the celebrities now sitting in federal prison, you first need to understand the room. Every single January, Hollywood's elite gather inside the Golden Globes. The biggest actors, the billion-dollar producers, the studio executives who decide whose career explodes and whose career disappears overnight. They sit around giant tables, drink champagne, laugh on cue, and pretend to be humble for the cameras. That's the show. That's the illusion. And year after year, the producers kept inviting back one man who clearly didn't care about staying on Hollywood's good side, a British comedian with nothing to lose. A man willing to stand in front of the most powerful people on earth and say the things nobody else dared to say.
We're not furious, most of us. We don't care. We wouldn't have even known about it if you hadn't have found it and printed it and told us we're furious. So it's just this vicious cycle. But no, I don't care. And likewise, I know people are allowed to be offended by things I've said. That's up to them. That's the good thing about freedom of speech. I can say what I want. You can say you're offended. I can.
That night, Ricky Gervais wasn't performing for the celebrities in that ballroom. His real audience was the 200 million people watching from home. Not the actors, not the producers, not the nervous publicists sitting in the front row forcing fake smiles. He was speaking directly to ordinary people, the viewers who had never been invited to those private parties, the people who never signed the NDAs, the people who had no idea what really happened. Once the cameras stopped rolling, and year after year, Gervais walked onto that stage and gave those millions of viewers something dangerous, a tiny crack in Hollywood's wall of silence, a brief glimpse of who the people in that room really were. Go back and watch that moment carefully. Watch the room. Watch the cameras instantly cut away. Watch producers suddenly stop eating. Watch actors freeze in their seats. Because that wasn't just a joke. That was a warning. That was a reference to a flight, a list, a connection everybody in that room instantly understood. And every single person sitting there knew exactly which plane he was talking about.
Didn't go out there and break the law. It wasn't mental. Everything was justified. I researched those jokes. I made sure it was fair. I wouldn't say anything to go, well, that's not fair. He didn't do that. I'd go, only tell the truth. I didn't out anyone. I didn't do anything it was not in public. I didn't do anything that was something they couldn't help. It was about their behavior.
I know he's your friend. He never even had to say the name, because everyone in that room already knew. They knew who had appeared in the flight logs, who had attended the parties, who had shared private dinners behind closed doors. And, more importantly, they knew exactly who they were protecting. That's why the laughter disappeared, because people don't laugh at warning shots. They go silent. They sit perfectly still, hoping the next bullet doesn't land on them. Now enter the second man who tried to warn the public, Jim Caviezel. And Jim wasn't some random conspiracy creator online. He wasn't a podcaster chasing clicks. This was the actor Mel Gibson personally chose to play Jesus Christ in The Passion of the Christ, a film that made over $600 million worldwide and became one of the most successful independent films ever created. After that movie, Jim Caviezel had everything: fame, respect, a guaranteed Hollywood future. Then he made one decision that changed everything overnight. He agreed to star in Sound of Freedom, a movie based on former federal agent Tim Ballard, a man who left his career behind to rescue children trapped in trafficking networks across Latin America. During filming, Jim reportedly walked up to people on set and started asking difficult questions about the reality of child trafficking, the kind of questions most people in Hollywood never wanted discussed publicly. And according to Caviezel, that was the moment he realized how deep and disturbing the situation really was.
He's asking about the movie, and I asked him about that one particular part where everybody's talking, and they all cried out Epstein Island. And I went, oh, okay. Now I understand what we're up against.
Wow.
Epstein Island.
You would assume Hollywood would instantly support a movie about rescuing children from human trafficking. You would think every major studio would fight for the chance to produce it, that it would be the easiest green light in the industry. But according to the people behind Sound of Freedom, the exact opposite happened. Doors started closing. Phone calls stopped getting returned. Executives suddenly wanted nothing to do with the project. The warning, they claimed, was clear. Don't produce it. Don't finance it. Don't distribute it. And don't let your name get attached to it. For a film centered around saving children, Hollywood reportedly acted like the movie itself was dangerous.
Rupert Murdoch from Fox to every studio. Look, if you touch this thing, you will be out, you will be done, you'll be finished.
Think about what Jim Caviezel was actually saying there. He was claiming that one of the most powerful media figures in the English-speaking world allegedly made it known that anyone connected to a movie exposing child trafficking could see their career destroyed within just a few years. That wasn't a small accusation. That was massive. And according to Caviezel, Hollywood's response wasn't to seriously address the claims. It was to ridicule him. They labeled him a conspiracy theorist, made him look unstable, and quietly pushed him further away from the mainstream industry. But despite all of that, Sound of Freedom still released without the backing of a single major Hollywood studio, and with only a fraction of the budget most blockbuster films receive. And somehow, it exploded. The movie earned over $250 million worldwide. The audience showed up. Hollywood didn't. And while Caviezel was being mocked for speaking out, and Ricky Gervais stopped getting invited back after exposing uncomfortable truths on live television, another major figure in Hollywood was sitting at the absolute peak: her influence. Her entire public image was built around one simple phrase: be kind. Millions of Americans watched her every afternoon. The slogan was everywhere on the merchandise, in the monologues, printed across the entire brand itself. Ellen DeGeneres became America's daytime symbol of kindness. The celebrity who danced into people's living rooms every day, reminding everyone to treat each other better. But in 2020, that image started collapsing. Dozens of former employees spoke to BuzzFeed and described something completely different behind the scenes. Not kindness, not warmth, but fear. One of those people was Hedda Muscat, not an intern, not a low-level assistant, but a longtime producer who had worked closely around Ellen for years.
DeGeneres feeling the heat as more employees, past and present, from her show say that they were working in a toxic environment. Some Hollywood actors also speaking out against the talk show.
Those weren't internet rumors. Those were direct accusations made on camera by former staff members who had actually worked inside the show. And suddenly, more employees began speaking out, one after another, describing what they claimed was a culture of fear operating behind one of the happiest shows on television. Staff said they constantly walked on eggshells. People were reportedly terrified of saying the wrong thing. This was the same daytime show that spent years telling America to be kind. Eventually, Warner Media launched a full internal investigation. 3 executive producers were fired. The allegations included racial discrimination, inappropriate behavior, and claims of a toxic workplace culture that employees said had existed for years behind closed doors. Then, in September 2020, Ellen DeGeneres finally addressed the controversy publicly for the very first time on her own show.
I am that person that you see on TV. I am also a lot of other things. Sometimes I get sad, I get mad, I get anxious, I get frustrated, I get impatient, and I am
What viewers got was a carefully polished apology, the kind that sounded emotional without ever clearly explaining what she was apologizing for. Ellen called herself a work in progress, but many former employees weren't convinced. One ex-staffer later said publicly, "She knew about this for 17 years. We were all terrified of her. She was not kind." And then, after nearly 2 decades on television, the Ellen DeGeneres show officially ended in May of 2022. 19 years. Gone. Comedian Cat Williams later hinted at something that many people in Hollywood had reportedly been whispering behind closed doors for years. Shows generating that kind of money and influence don't usually just disappear overnight. According to him, something much bigger had happened behind the scenes, something nobody wanted discussed publicly. And then, only 2 months after the show ended, things became even darker. 2 months later, Ellen's former partner, Anne Heche, was dead. 4 months after that, Stephen Twitch Boss, Ellen's longtime DJ, executive producer, and one of the most recognizable faces of the show, was dead too. Both deaths were officially ruled tragedies, but both also left behind questions that people online still debate to this day. Let's start with Anne Heche. Anne and Ellen dated publicly from 1997 to 2000, during a time when their relationship dominated headlines across America. Years later, Anne admitted in interviews that going public with the relationship changed her career forever. According to her, major opportunities suddenly disappeared almost overnight. Then came August 5th, 2022. Security footage reportedly captured Anne's car speeding through a Los Angeles neighborhood at an alarming rate before crashing directly into a house. The impact triggered a massive fire. The home burned. The vehicle burned. Everything around it was engulfed in flames. Anne was pulled from the wreckage, suffering severe burns and smoke inhalation. And then, a video surfaced online that people still talk about to this day.
Was far from nice. We're out there for years. What was your reaction to the toxic workplace controversy?
I felt that it was in the hands of the people who needed to speak their truth. I hadn't spoken to Ellen in years, and I feel that the stories that need to be listened to are being told.
Did the stuff about her being emotionally abusive to her staff ring true to you?
Emotionally abusive is a container for our actions that we've not healed. And unfortunately, the abusive environment was something that I understood.
Then, just 4 months later, it happened again. December 13th, 2022. Stephen Twitch Boss, the beloved DJ from The Ellen DeGeneres Show, executive producer, dancer, and the smiling face audiences saw every single afternoon, was found dead in a hotel room from what authorities ruled a self-inflicted gunshot wound. To millions of viewers, Twitch represented positivity, energy, happiness. He wasn't just part of Ellen's brand, he became one of the main faces of the entire Be Kind image. And according to his family, nobody saw any warning signs. His wife, Allison Holker, later told People magazine that he showed no visible signs of depression and spent most of his life trying to be everyone's Superman. Even his grandfather spoke publicly just days later, saying they had spoken recently and that Twitch sounded like the exact same happy, upbeat person he had always been. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing felt wrong. The final message his grandfather said he received from him was simple: "I love you, Dad." And then came January of 2025. Just weeks before new Epstein-related documents were expected to become public, Alison Holker suddenly revealed something new, a statement that immediately reignited online speculation and sent social media into another frenzy. Few things you simply cannot handle.
You cannot handle. I'm a firm believer in that. There was a moment I was with one of my really dear friends, and we were cleaning out the closet and picking out an outfit for him for the funeral. And it was a really triggering moment for me because there was a lot of things I discovered in our closet that I didn't.
Then another disturbing detail surfaced. Alison Holker later told BuzzFeed that after Stephen Twitch Boss passed away, she discovered what she described as a hidden stash of drugs inside their home, including shoeboxes allegedly filled with cocaine. She said the discovery shocked her. According to her, it appeared he had been secretly self-medicating while hiding his struggles from almost everyone around him. And once again, people online started asking the same questions. Within just 4 months, 2 people closely connected to Ellen DeGeneres were gone. Both deaths were officially ruled tragedies. Both investigations were formally closed. But for many observers, the unanswered questions never disappeared. Then, months later, another massive story exploded. And suddenly all those old conversations came roaring back into the spotlight. In February 2026, the Department of Justice released millions of pages connected to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And this is where the conversation shifted. Because the next part isn't rumor. It isn't internet gossip. These were real criminal cases with real court outcomes. Over the years, Ellen DeGeneres had publicly associated with multiple powerful men who were later convicted of serious crimes involving exploitation or abuse. First, Sean "Diddy" Combs. Diddy appeared on Ellen's show numerous times throughout the years, and the two openly joked around on camera. During one 2016 episode, Ellen even gave him a playful nickname in front of a cheering audience. Then came September 2024. Federal authorities arrested Diddy on major criminal charges. By mid-2025, he was convicted on charges connected to transportation-related offenses involving prostitution, and later sentenced to prison. Many alleged victims publicly argued the punishment still wasn't enough. Then came Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein also appeared on Ellen's show. The two were photographed together at major Hollywood events, and Ellen had publicly supported his projects during the height of his influence in the entertainment industry. And by the time many of these scandals fully exploded publicly, Ellen DeGeneres was already living overseas in England. That isn't speculation.
Pretty hungry. I just feel like everybody's got to be hungry right now. Good. I was hoping you'd say that because I have this crazy idea that I will order pizza. And so if I do, I don't want it to go to waste. Who will eat pizza if I... Jennifer? Yes? Harrison? Yes? Yes? Mark? All right. Too large? What do you think? I'm going to order some pizza.
Now, circle back to Jim Caviezel, because this is where his warning starts sounding very different to a lot of people. Caviezel has never publicly accused Ellen DeGeneres directly in any verified interview. What he talks about is something much larger than one celebrity. He describes it as an 8-armed octopus. Cut off one arm, one producer, one executive, one famous host, and the system keeps moving. One name disappears, but the machine survives. That was the point he kept trying to make. Then there was Ricky Gervais. At the 2020 Golden Globes, he stood directly in front of Hollywood's most powerful celebrities and joked about subjects most people in that room clearly did not want mentioned publicly. And if you rewatch the footage carefully, the reactions are impossible to ignore. The smiles vanish. The room becomes tense. Several celebrities suddenly look visibly uncomfortable. One of the faces viewers immediately focused on was Tom Hanks. Years later, online speculation surrounding Hanks would explode into one of the biggest conspiracy discussions in modern entertainment culture. One woman in particular, Ruth Ashcraft, made shocking allegations online involving Tom Hanks and events from her childhood. To be clear, these allegations have never been proven in court, and Tom Hanks has never been charged with any crime related to those claims. But once the Epstein files and celebrity connections became a constant topic online, the internet began pulling every old clip, reaction, and rumor back into public discussion. And suddenly, people started revisiting Ricky Gervais's monologue from 2020 inches, a completely different light. So let's rewind to that night. January 2020, the Golden Globe Awards. Every major celebrity in Hollywood packed into one ballroom, dressed in designer suits and expensive gowns, celebrating themselves in front of millions watching at home. Then Ricky Gervais walked onto the stage. And unlike everyone else in that room, he openly admitted he wasn't there to impress celebrities. I had a choice: entertain the 200 richest people in the room, or the 200 million people watching at home. And among all the famous faces in attendance that night, one person would later become the center of endless online theories and speculation: Tom Hanks. For decades, Hanks had been viewed as untouchable, America's favorite actor, the lovable father figure from Forrest Gump, the voice of Woody from Toy Story, the heroic pilot in Sully. His entire career was built on playing honest, trustworthy, deeply human characters, and audiences completely believed that image. 2 Academy Awards, a decades-long marriage, one of the cleanest reputations in Hollywood. But Hollywood has always understood one thing better than anyone else: image is everything, and the people who control those images hold enormous power. Now, regarding the Epstein documents, Tom Hanks has not been identified as a regular visitor to Epstein's island, and there is no public evidence accusing him of criminal wrongdoing connected to Epstein. However, his name reportedly appeared in a 2013 email connected to Epstein's publicist. The context suggested a social connection, not proof of criminal activity. But in the world of internet speculation, even a small thread is enough for people to start building an entire story around it.